tenacity, the resilience that you had to sit in here and to put up with so much gobbledygook for so long and talk about a dog chasing its tail. It's one of the sad things in my time involved in politics is how many good people have left. It's disheartening. This board that just got voted out systematically went after one by one, which is what happens, is that well, I guess I want to start off with, this world is divided. It's divided into a light and a darkness. The light seeketh truth, and the dark is evil and likes to take control. And it's always sad when you see what goes on with the secret meetings, the collaboration that goes on in darkness. One of the things that really disappointed me with this board was that the meetings were never made public. And they acted like that, oh, we can't send that out. And if you want to come and read the meetings of a board of governors, you got to come to me and make a special appointment. And I will have a paper copy, and nobody's allowed to make any copies of that copy. And when you're done, I take it away. And this has been part of the problem for the last year. Last November, they voted to quit paying me. It wasn't because of about the money. They were convinced that they quit paying me, that I would quit. And so when I didn't, and I talked to a few of my good supporters, and I said, you know, it was one of the conditions, there was 3 conditions that I really pushed onto the board when they asked me to become leader. Number 1, it had to be full-time paid position. This is an incredibly difficult job. There's not enough hours in the day, days in the week, weeks in the month, and there's not enough months left for the year to our next election. And he says, no, we've got an incredible job to do, and this needs to be full-time and need to compensate the leader and the leader's team. They said no. And I said, well, great, don't have to worry about it then. Well, they called back and they agreed. The second one is that I said, you know, twice, and I don't know if you realize this, but I was the leader of the Alberta Alliance. I was the first leader of the Wild Rose Party. I don't like politics any more than I like being in the pig pen in the farm, and I love eating pork. But somebody has to do it. And I talked to my family, talked to my children, my grandchildren, and this is almost as chaotic as my house right now. I have 11 grandchildren under 11. We have 4 dogs, and it's chaotic. But it's all worth it. But to go back to the light versus the darkness, this is a good versus evil. We have an incredible, difficult job ahead of us, but boy, we really forged some steel today in the refiner's fire. But it was your resilience to not let that evil, I guess basically get you to the point of disgust and say, I'm done with this. The number of people just in this last year that we have lost because they were disgusted and says, you know what, I'm tired. I would go to the board meetings and they would criticize me and say, oh, membership's not going up, this isn't going up, that's not going up. I felt like there was 15 of us in the boat. 5 of us were paddling all we were worth going upstream. Well, the other 10 complained, stuck their paddle in the water, hit us over the head. And it's been a difficult year. And we've lost some really good people, including Paul Gullickson off the board, who just says, you know what, I don't need to deal with this. There's truth to that old saying, birds of a feather stick together. And when you have a bunch of filthy birds that they just want to poop in the nest and cause grief, the good people leave. It's just the way it is. Good people don't want to stay in a box of bad apples. And so I'm so proud of you to sticking out, and we threw out the bad apples today. And you need to congratulate yourself for that. What I will give them credit is that they did a darn good job to try and stick around. But when Barry, I think it was Barry, said that we were going to adjourn the meeting, at that point I had to intervene because we couldn't, we would have lost at that point. Had we adjourned the meeting, they would be the governors at large, and the board of governors, and we would be without a party for the members. So at that point, it's out of control. I walked into the room, didn't care what the results were going to be, because wasn't going to let that happen. But for me, what the Wild Rose Independence Party is all about, it's about truth and trust. And when you have people, and again, it never ceases to amaze me, but yet it should, is how toxic power is. This cabal of agents were so set with it. This many people in the room, and I'd sure like to get a count so we kind of know how many we have, that they didn't care. They weren't going to back down. They figured that they had the power, and what I found is power is a lot more intoxicating than a lot of alcohol and drugs and stuff. Once they get a little sense of that in their head, it's just about impossible to get them to wake up. And we witnessed that today. They were drunk with power, and they weren't going to leave. And so once again, I thank each and every one of you for sitting through that, because too often good people just walk up and say, I'm done with that. But we have a big job going forward. We need to go back and get our CAs together. We need to find individuals that are willing to run next year in the election and represent us. But the truth is if the party and those people that are running don't trust you, we should not trust them. And trust starts with me by giving your word that I'm accountable to you, the members. Are those that are running for MLAs are going to give their promise to the people that we're accountable to you. And if 50% plus one of the number of people who voted in the last election vote to remove you, we will step down as Wild Rosers. We're not going to be like this Board of Governors that's set in that position and says, oh, we were elected. I think most of you all realize that half of them were never elected. They got appointed. And that's what happens in rogue regimes where you have totalitarian, authoritarian individuals. One of the more disgusting things when they kicked Todd off as VP of Policy and Governance, and I argued with them for 20 minutes with the bylaws, saying that please show me, and I'd read that it says here that there's no vetting, that one of the members on our board had the audacity to say, we the board will decide what they get to vote on. We the board will decide who gets to vote. And that's what they did with the nomination committee. Interesting part too with our policy and governance and our code of conduct, not one of those individuals that put their name forward that they disqualified, that I'm aware of, and I could be wrong, got a letter from the board saying that this is a letter of censorship because of what you've done. They talked about it, they wrote some I guess, well no, the only censorship letter that came out is when they said that you were disqualified, and many people didn't get it, and they wouldn't send it out 3 weeks ago, they wouldn't send it out the day of. That is not an open and honest and a trusting Board of Governors. It's been discouraging. We've lost a lot of members. Stephen talked about another entity saying they're blowing by us. They're not a political party. We're number one in the province for the third choice. Some of the board, and again, where the real divisiveness and the anger came up, and I don't know if all of you have read all of those wonderful reports that the board put out about me and about the leadership race and about the by-election and about the trying to make a deal with me as a leader. What they wanted to do was to pay me enough that I couldn't be successful, so I wouldn't sign it. And they haven't paid me, but we've carried on. But we knew that there was going to be a by-election on the 16th of August, and the board didn't want to do anything. We had one of these arrogant individuals who said, there will not be a by-election, we're not going to waste any time preparing for a by-election. We had other ones that says, well, we're going to be spanked, we can't beat them. And I made the comment, and sometimes I even call my own kids, even my wife the odd time, the wrong name. I may have misspoken that night, but it's very clear in my mind what I said was, I can guarantee you, if we're not in that by-election, we won't win. And then they twisted that around to say that I guaranteed that we were going to win if I was in the by-election. Not so. Like I say, it's been a real struggle with these individuals, and I'm just excited to come out of the Refiner's Fire today with a team that wants to push forward. Realize that we have 87 battles next May. Don't worry about what's happening in downtown Edmonton. It's your CA. That's a single solitary battle, and that's what we need to win. I have said this since I first ran in 2004. I had sold 283 memberships, and I said to the president of the party back then, I'm not going to open up. They wanted to open up and get the first nomination done for the Alberta Alliance. And I says, no, I'm going around, I door knock, I talk to my friends, and I says, you know, I'm disgusted with government. I'm so upset that I'm willing to run. And I would talk to people and I'd say, but I can't run unless you buy a membership to vote so I can win the nomination. A lot of people, and again, politics stinks. Governance is important, but politics stinks. Don't get into that political strategic thing on how do I get elected. What we want to do is to be an elected representative. And so, as I sold those memberships and we got up to 283, the leader of the party says, no, we're going to call the nomination. And all of a sudden, after my nomination was over and I go around knocking on doors and trying to sell memberships, people will say, well, what for? And they say, well, we need you to be a member, you know, so that you can vote the next AGM. Says, no, I'm not worried about that. It's very difficult. But if anybody in here or anybody you know that's interested in running, what you need to tell them is I'll help you sell memberships. And when we get 500 memberships sold, and we've got $5,000 in the bank for a campaign fund, we'll open up the nomination. You don't need to worry about me stepping in and saying, you know what, I don't like people that wear black hats. Gosh, we got 2 in here, 3. But this is what goes on in politics, and that you have a leader or you have a corrupt board of governors that step in and say who can and who can't run. And we witness that just running here for a provincial board of governors. If you have 500 members sold and $5,000 in the bank, I'm counting on those 500 members to pick the person that they want. And the only reason why they'll be disqualified is if a background check or something, which should be done before then, but sometimes it isn't. But if the background check shows that somebody's been bankrupt and they don't qualify, or if somebody, you know, had charges or whatever it is, there are some parameters where people will be removed. But they'll be very explicit in why they're doing it, not because, oh, this individual posted something 13 years ago that's offensive today, so I'm not going to allow it. We're better than that. And that's what we got to do. But so what you need to do is to grow the membership in your CAs. We got to find people that are willing to stick their neck out and run, sell 500 memberships, get $5,000 in the bank, and then we can call a nomination. Don't worry about other CAs. We're going to start having monthly get-togethers on Zoom or whatever, saying what's successful. Angela has been traveling around in carts in Siksika, but very few other presidents know. But each different area is having success. But this board of governors, like any totalitarian government, it's isolation. It's creating silos. They don't want us to know each other. It's been very difficult. Anyways, after they took Todd out, and again I argued on the board saying that no, he did the right thing. It says in here that the members get to decide. He sent it out to get the policies done, and he was removed because of that. Kathy was also removed because she sent it out. We lost our ability to communicate with you guys a long time ago. They took that over. And again, more disgusting behavior of totalitarian regimes. But this is about freedom. This is about what you own. We own our bodies. That's our first property that each and every one of us own and have a right to. It's always interesting to me how government and healthcare officials will draw lines saying here or there. But the fact of the matter is, it's been established. If a person's in a car accident and they say that, no, I don't want blood transfusion, and the doctor and everyone says you're going to die without it, they respect that. We need that respect across the board. We don't need a government that picks and chooses. When you have your freedoms and when you don't. We will develop a constitution that recognizes the supremacy of God and the rule of law.
Yeah.
we will have a constitution that realizes that the government gets its power from the people. Government has no authority that an individual can't transfer over and say, yes, you have this authority. That this tyranny of the majority is wrong. Our current constitution, it has some good lines, but it has a few really bad lines that are divisive and tears apart our country. I often use the analogy here that, you know, we got to pay for this afterwards. We're a democracy. We need to vote on who needs to pay for this. Anybody who's wearing a hat has to pay. Who's in favor of that? That's not the type of constitution. We don't want politicians to be able to divide and conquer. So our constitution will protect our God-given inalienable rights of life, liberty, property, and our pursuit of happiness. This idea that we don't, they say we own our property, but we have to pay taxes to keep our property. In a sovereign-free Alberta, we're going to get rid of property taxes. In a sovereign-free Alberta, we're going to reduce the taxes. You know, there's people that say that we can do it at 10%. I don't know. We'll sit down as Albertans, we'll decide that, but we need to reduce the size of government, the scope of government, and that's what our focus will be. But at this point, we have an opportunity to vote on a new Board of Governors. It's critical that we get it done, but I can't say how proud I am of each and every one of you for what we've done here today, and we need to keep purging. When we have problems show up, we need to stand up and say no. We need to change our bylaws so that people are accountable through recall and we can get rid of them. And it's just, like I say, very sad. And my last piece of advice, rules are for fools and guidance for the wise. And for that individual up here to say that, oh, this is the rule, and if you do that, then the meeting is void and null and everything else, that to me was a fool. Thanks very much. Turn it over back to Danny, and let's get our president